Have you ever been in a debate about some huge issue, like climate change or the economy, and you just feel like you and the other person are speaking completely different languages? It's super frustrating, right? But what if the reason we're always talking past each other isn't really about the solutions we're proposing, but it's about something way deeper, something that happens before the debate even starts, how we define the problem in the first place?
It really does feel like we're all looking at the exact same set of facts, but somehow we're coming to these wildly different conclusions. One side sees a crisis of personal responsibility, and the other sees a complete failure of the system. The reason for this huge disconnect is this powerful and honestly usually invisible force that shapes pretty much all of our political and social debates.
Okay, so let's take a real-world example, homelessness. One person might frame the problem exactly like this. Now, this viewpoint, it emphasizes individual agency, the choices people make, and it kind of leads you down a logical path, right? A path of solutions focused on personal accountability, maybe work programs, discouraging dependency. It's a plausible argument.
But then, another person looking at the very same situation could frame it this way. This definition points to totally different causes, external, structural forces. And so it leads to a completely different set of solutions. Building more affordable housing, raising the minimum wage, expanding the social safety net. Both of these frames use real-world facts, yet they create two totally separate realities. And that is the power of problem framing.
So this brings us to our first big idea, the problem behind the problem. See, before we even get to argue about solutions, a battle has already been fought and won over how the problem itself is defined. So let's dig into what the experts call policy problem framing.
I know. It sounds super academic, but it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Framing is all about choosing what to highlight. You take a messy, complex reality, and the frame selects certain facts, certain causes, and certain values to focus on. It basically turns a vague situation into an understandable problem. It's the act of making an issue make sense so we can actually talk about it.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to make a distinction here. Framing is not the same thing as spin. We hear that word all the time. Spin is designed to mislead, to obscure the truth. Framing, on the other hand, is actually a necessary tool for us to understand anything. It's an honest attempt to make sense of a complex world by choosing a focus. The key difference? Good framing acknowledges that other valid ways of seeing the problem exist.
So, how can we get better at actually seeing these frames out in the wild? Well, let's explore this really powerful tool from organizational experts Bowman and Deal. It gives us 4 distinct lenses we can use to view pretty much any problem.
And here they are, the 4 frames. You can think of a problem as a machine, focusing on structure, rules, and efficiency. Or you could see it as a family, where the focus is on people and their needs. You could see it as a jungle, all about power, conflict, and competition. Or finally, as the theater, where culture, stories, and symbols are what really matter. So let's take this toolkit and apply it back to our homelessness example.
Okay, if you put on your structural machine glasses, the problem of homelessness looks like a systems failure. It's a glitch in the machine. You'd focus on the fact that different city agencies aren't talking to each other, that their roles overlap. So your solutions would be all about efficiency. Create a central task force, drop some new org charts, and get a better data system. Fix the machine.
All right, now let's switch to the human resource or family frame. Boom! The focus shifts entirely to people. The problem is now defined by the burnout of social workers on the front lines and the complex, unmet needs of individuals, mental health, job training, you name it. The solutions then become all about support, training, and personalized client-centered care. You take care of the family. Now, let's try the political jungle lens. From this view, homelessness is a power struggle. It's a fight over scarce city budgets between all these competing interest groups. You've got business owners, housing advocates, neighborhood associations, all vying for resources. The way forward isn't about a better org chart or more empathy. It's about building coalitions, negotiating deals, and winning the political fight. Survival of the fittest.
And finally, the symbolic theater frame. This perspective says the root problem is actually cultural. It's about public stigma. It's about negative stereotypes. It's about the story the city tells about itself. So the solutions? They're about changing that story. You launch campaigns with success stories to create a new narrative. You get visible endorsements from leaders. You create rituals like community volunteer days to build empathy. It's all about the performance. So you see, 4 frames, 1 issue, 4 completely different sets of problems and solutions.
That last frame, the symbolic one,
the one that's all about stories and culture. Well, that leads us perfectly into our next tool, which comes from the work of cognitive linguist George Lakoff. He argues that political debates are not just about facts and figures. They're really battles between these deep, unconscious metaphors that structure how we see the entire world.
So, according to Lakoff, a lot of conservative and progressive worldviews are built on two different models of an ideal family. You've got the strict father model, which values discipline, self-reliance, and moral authority. This naturally leads to a political view where government should be limited and just stay out of the way. Then you have the nurturant parent model, which values empathy, protection, and caring for others. And that leads to a view that government has a real responsibility to protect and empower its citizens. These deep frames determine which arguments just feel right to us deep in our gut.
Let's look at a classic example, the phrase tax relief. Think about it. That is not a neutral term. The metaphor working here is that taxation is an affliction, right? It's a burden, a disease, something you need relief from. So this frame automatically makes taxes seem like a bad thing, and of course, cutting them seems like a good thing. It plugs directly into that strict father model of standing on your own 2 feet.
Now consider the counterframe, shared investment. This phrase frames taxes in a completely different way. It suggests that taxes are a contribution we all make to things we share and all benefit from, like schools, safe roads, scientific research. This simple change in language activates that nurturant parent model of collective responsibility. You see, the fight isn't over the tax rate itself, it's over the metaphor.
So, why does all of this matter? I mean, what's the big takeaway here? Well, because understanding framing isn't just some neat academic exercise. It's a critical superpower for navigating the modern world. It lets you decode the debates happening all around you and, maybe more importantly, lets you participate in them more thoughtfully.
And you can start using this right now. The next time you hear a politician, a pundit, even a friend talking about a big issue, just run it through this simple 3-step process. First, try to identify the frame they're using. What are they emphasizing? What's the hidden metaphor? Second, and this is key, ask what's missing. Whose perspective or what facts are being left out by that frame? And third, actively try to imagine other ways the issue could be framed.
So, let's leave you with a final thought, a little homework to practice your new skill. Think about the huge, complex debate happening right now around artificial intelligence. How is it being framed? Is it an economic opportunity? Is it a threat to humanity? Is it an innovation race against other countries, or something else entirely? And here's the most important question. Who benefits from the way it's being framed right now? Because once you start seeing the frames, you can't unsee them.